Madhurya Kadambini, A Cloud Bank of Nectar by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. Sixth Shower of Nectar, Enchantment of the Heart. Śuddha-bhakti or āsakti. Text 1a. Ruchi pertains to bhajan and āsakti pertains to bhajaniya. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Ruchi or transcendental taste, which was previously discussed, pertains to bhajan. When Ruchi becomes highly mature and makes Sri Bhagwan himself the object of bhajan or the bhajaniya, the Ruchi is known as āsakti. This āsakti represents the stage in the growth of the wish-fulfilling vine of devotion, in which clusters of buds appear, indicating that very soon this wish-fulfilling vine will produce the flowers of bhava and the fruit of prema. Ruchi makes bhajan or developing a mood of devotional service its object, whereas āsakti makes bhajaniya or Sri Krishna the goal of bhajan its object. Although these characteristics denote the primary objects of Ruchi and āsakti respectively, Ruchi and āsakti do in fact include both bhajan and bhajaniya as their objects. Ruchi and āsakti are distinguished by their maturity, Ruchi being immature and āsakti mature. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura is now describing the symptoms of the stage of āsakti. Ruchi, whose object is bhajan, is inclined towards the limbs of bhajan such as Shravan and Kirtan. When that Ruchi matures and makes Bhagwan her object, she is known as āsakti. The devotee who possesses Ruchi naturally relishes performing the limbs of bhajan such as Shravan and Kirtan, whereas the devotee who possesses āsakti experiences an awakening of direct attachment to his worshipful deity. A cluster of buds is visible on a vine just before it blossoms with flowers and bears fruit. Such buds indicate that soon flowers and fruits will appear on the vine. Likewise, the appearance of this āsakti indicates that very quickly the sādhaka's desire creeper of devotion or bhakti kalpalata will yield the flower of bhava and the fruit of prema. Ruchi pertains to bhajan, whereas āsakti pertains to bhajaniya, the object of bhajan, Sri Bhagwan. In other words, the principal object of Ruchi is bhajan and the principal object of āsakti is Sri Bhagwan. The symptoms of Ruchi and āsakti have been distinguished by this alone. In reality, both Ruchi and āsakti have devotional service or bhajan and Bhagwan, the bhajaniya, as their objects. The import is that although it is true that a devotee at the stage of Ruchi has a taste for bhajan, it does not mean he has no attachment or āsakti to Sri Bhagwan. Still, his Ruchi for bhajan predominates over his attachment to Bhagwan. In the same way, it is not true that a devotee at the stage of āsakti who has developed strong attachment to Sri Bhagwan does not maintain a taste or Ruchi for bhajan. It is just that at that time the prominent element is attachment to Bhagwan. Thus, both Ruchi and āsakti make both bhajan and bhajaniya their objects. In other words, a taste for devotional practice or bhajan ruchi depends on attachment or attraction to Bhagwan or Bhagavad āsakti, and attachment to Bhagwan depends on a taste for devotional practice. This can be elucidated as follows. One cannot develop attachment to Bhagwan without possessing a taste for devotional practice, and one cannot develop a taste for devotional practice without having attachment to Bhagwan. Hence, āsakti is the fully ripened state of Ruchi. Text 1b. At the stage of asakti, the heart is like a clean mirror. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Asakti cleanses the mirror of the heart of the sadhaka to such an extent that when Bhagwan's reflection suddenly manifests in his heart, the sadhaka feels that he is having Bhagwan's direct audience. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. This very asakti thoroughly cleanses the mirror of the devotee's heart or chitta to such an extent that Bhagwan, who is reflected in it, appears to be directly visible before the practitioner. Bhagwan is extremely close to the living entities residing in their heart, but from time immemorial, the dirt of the desire for sense gratification has sullied the mirror of the heart, and as a result, it cannot reflect the charming sweetness or Mādhurya of Sri Hari. When asakti awakens, that mirror is cleansed significantly. Sri Hari is reflected there and is perceived as if directly with the eyes. Text 1c. Effortless absorption of the mind in Bhagwan's name, form, etc. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Alas, my mind has been overwhelmed by sense objects. I must focus it again on Sri Bhagwan. Previously, at the stages of Nishtha and Ruchi, only when the sadhaka's desire was accompanied by such active resolve could he almost fully withdraw his mind from material sense objects and focus it on meditating on the forms, qualities, and so forth of Sri Bhagwan. Upon awakening of asakti, however, even before the devotee desires it, that very same mind automatically meditates on Bhagwan's forms and qualities. The devotee at the stage of Nishtha finds himself unable to trace how and when his mind has wandered away from Bhagwan's forms, qualities, and so on, and become lost in unrelated mundane topics. And at asakti, the mind imperceptibly withdraws from matters unrelated to Bhagwan and automatically absorbs itself in contemplating Bhagwan's form, qualities, etc. This kind of attachment is unknown to a devotee in whose heart asakti has not awakened. Only a devotee endowed with asakti has experience of it. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. The stage of asakti possesses another feature that distinguishes it from the stage of ruchi. At the stage of ruchi, the sadhaka uses his intelligence to draw his mind away from sense objects and places it again at the lotus feet of Bhagwan. But at the stage of asakti, the sadhaka's mind becomes absorbed in Bhagwan very easily, without any endeavor. No doubt, for the sadhaka, this is a desirable stage. The devotee, endowed with nishtha, is not aware of when his mind digresses from Bhagwan's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes and becomes absorbed in extraneous topics unrelated to Bhagwan. Similarly, at asakti, the mind imperceptibly withdraws from topics unrelated to Bhagwan and becomes completely immersed in Bhagwan, Sri Hari's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes. One in whom asakti has not awakened, however, has no understanding of this. Only someone endowed with asakti can note it. One should thus comprehend that at the stage of asakti, meditation on Bhagwan's form, qualities, and so forth is more intensified than at the stage of ruchi. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī writes in his commentary on Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu in 1.4.15 and 16. Ruchir abhilashah kintu buddhi purvikayam asaktistu swarasiki swabhavik itya arthaha. This means, at the stage of ruchi, by way of his intelligence or buddhi purvak, the sadhaka pursues three desires. First, a desire to do that which is favorable to Sri Krishna, or anukulya abhilasha. Second, a desire to serve Bhagwan with intimacy, or saudharya abhilasha. And third, a desire to attain Bhagwan, or bhagvat praptya abhilasha. At the stage of asakti, however, these three desires are inspired naturally or spontaneously. Text 2. A. The behavior of one in asakti upon seeing a sadhu. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. On seeing a saintly person in the morning, such a devotee inquires, "Dear sage, where do you hail from? Around your neck hangs a Sri Saligrama Shila in a beautiful floral case. Your tongue constantly quivers as you softly utter the holy name of Sri Krishna and relish its nectar. I do not know why you are giving a person as unfortunate as I your darshan, thus filling me with delight. Which holy places did you visit on your pilgrimage? Which great souls did you have darshan of there? And who were the great devotees whose realizations you heard, by which you have made your life and the lives of others successful?" In this way, he spends some time drinking the nectar that such sweet discussions arouse. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura provides an unparalleled and extremely beautiful picture of the activities of a devotee who has attained the stage of asakti. Upon the awakening of asakti, that devotee becomes exceedingly eager to obtain his cherished object. He cannot stay in any one place and leaves his home to wander here and there. Upon obtaining the darshan of a Vaishnava sadhu, he deems his life successful and with intense faith and affection makes various inquiries about bhajana. Text 2b. Speaking to the reciter of Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Thereafter, he goes to another place and, upon seeing a reciter of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, speaks to him thus: "Dear sir, noticing the remarkable beauty of the book tucked under your arm, I am assuming that you are learned in Puranas such as Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Therefore, please be merciful to me and rejuvenate my chatak bird-like ears by showering upon me a nectarian elucidation of just one of the verses from the 10th canto." Upon hearing the reciter explain the Śrīmad Bhagavatam verse, the hairs of his body stand on end. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Sometimes, upon seeing a narrator of Śrīmad Bhagavatam and hearing him recite and explain a verse from the 10th canto in relation to Sri Krishna's sweetness, the devotee at the stage of asakti experiences unsurpassed happiness and the hair on his body stands on end. Ruchi, in its condensed form, becomes asakti. Thus, the devotee with asakti experiences an awakening of an intensified taste for hearing the narrations of Sri Krishna's pastimes. Text 2c. Submission of distress upon receiving darshan of a Mahabhagavata. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. He then goes to yet another place and presents himself before an assembly of sadhus. "Aho," he says, "now my life will become successful, because these great souls will immediately destroy all my sins." Saying this, he falls to the earth, offering those great souls his respectful prostrated obeisances in all humility. The devotee then sits near the best of Mahabhagavatas, the supremely learned crest jewel of all persons in that assembly, whose heart has melted in affection for him. Having received respect from that Mahabhagavata, the devotee, feeling extreme shyness, says, "O crest jewel of physicians who destroy the great disease of material existence for all living entities within the 3 worlds, please examine the pulse of this degraded person who is extremely fallen and ascertain my disease. Please prescribe a great elixir, Mahārāja, and diet to nourish my cherished desires. In this way, his eye full of tears, he begs mercy from him. Having received his merciful glance and accepted his nectarian instructions, he becomes overjoyed and spends 5 or 6 days there, serving his lotus feet. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Sometimes his mind becomes distracted and he wanders off to another place. Upon coming across an assembly of saintly persons, he immediately considers that he has made his life successful. Indeed, he regards the topmost of sadhus in that Vaishnava assembly as the crest jewel of physicians who can destroy the great disease of material existence. His mind thus restless, he approaches him and asks many questions concerning the medicine and diet to cure the disease of material existence, and how he can most quickly fulfill his cherished desire. Having heard that sadhu's merciful instructions, he considers himself most successful and remains there for some days, engaging in service to him. The asakti brimming in his heart, however, does not allow him to remain in one place. Where do I go? What shall I do? How shall I obtain Sri Krishna? His condition becomes like this. Text 2d. Searching for Bhagwan's mercy in the activities of birds and animals. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. At other times, as he joyfully wanders throughout a forest, he thinks, if Shri Krishna's merciful glance is upon me, then that black deer in the distance will take 3 or 4 steps towards me. And if Shri Krishna's mercy is not there, then the deer will turn its back on me and go further away. In this way, he considers even the natural movements of birds and animals as signs of Bhagwan's mercy or neglect. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Sometimes, completely distracted, he wanders from forest to forest. Upon beholding a black deer, he thinks, Aho, this deer, aptly called Krishna-sāra, has made Sri Krishna the essence of his life. Krishna-sāra is a particular type of deer, but here the devotee takes Krishna to mean Sri Krishna and Sāra to mean essence. Therefore, if he advances 3 or 4 steps towards me, then I will understand that Sri Krishna's mercy is upon me. And if he turns away and runs, then I will understand that Sri Krishna's mercy is not upon me. In this way, he sees the symptoms of Bhagwan's mercy or neglect in the natural activities of birds and other animals. In other words, he longs for Bhagwan's mercy in everything. Text 2e. Seeing some Brahmin boys as the 4 Kumaras. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Again, on the outskirts of a village, he sees some Brahmin boys playing. Understanding them to be like Sanak and so forth, he inquires from them, will I be able to obtain the son of Sri Nanda Mahārāja? Sometimes he considers their incomplete, inarticulate responses to be understandable and sometimes not. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Sometimes on the outskirts of a village, he may see very young Brahmin boys playing. Instantaneously, a sphurti or momentary vision of the 4 childlike saints, the 4 Kumaras, headed by Sri Sanak Muni, awakens in his heart. And he begins to question these boys. Will I obtain Sri Krishna? If upon hearing this question, any of the boys even indistinctly says no, then the devotee with asakti will become overwhelmed with distress and begin to weep. Alas, alas! But if, upon seeing him wailing, someone says, you will certainly attain Sri Krishna, he begins to dance in ecstasy. Text 2f. behaving like a miserly merchant. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. At other times he sits in his dwelling and thinks just like a miserly merchant who hankers for immense wealth. Where shall I go? What shall I do? How shall I obtain my cherished treasure? He worries in this way, his face full of sadness. Sometimes he remains asleep, sometimes he stands up, and sometimes he remains sitting. Sometimes, if close family relatives ask why he is behaving so strangely, he becomes mute. And sometimes he conceals his real emotions. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Sometimes, becoming indifferent to everything, he sits silently within his house. At times, he is like a miserly merchant, greedy for great wealth, his restless mind wandering. Where will I obtain Bhagwan? Where will I go? What do I have to do to obtain my cherished object? Anxious, his mind depressed, he is lost in this constant meditation. He even forgets to attend to bodily functions like eating and bathing. Sometimes he remains sleeping, sometimes he suddenly stands up, and sometimes he remains sitting. At home, when his relatives ask him why he is behaving like this, he maintains silence in an attempt to conceal his emotions. Text 2G. The opinions of various persons about one in āsakti. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Seeing him in such a condition, his friends and relatives begin to think that his intelligence has now become deranged. Ignorant neighbors say that by nature he is mentally unfit or dull. The adherents of Mīmānsa philosophy say that he is a fool. The followers of Vedanta philosophy refer to him as bewildered, and the fruitive workers declare that he is ruined. The devotees, however, understand the true state of affairs. Ah, just see, he has obtained the most essential thing, they say. Offenders to the Vaishnavas remark that he brims with deceit and pride. But he, the best of the devotees, is free from all concern for mundane honor and dishonor, and being immersed in the flow of divine attachment to Bhagwan, Bhagavad Asakti, which is like the flow of the Mandakini, he continues to manifest different kinds of transcendental behavior as mentioned above. Thus ends the Bhāvānuvāda of the sixth shower of nectar named Manoharini, or enchantment of the heart. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. His household friends and relatives begin to think that his intelligence has become deranged. When ignorant neighbors see his behavior, they say he is lazy and by nature devoid of knowledge and intelligence. Some surmise that he is mentally ill. The followers of Mīmānsa philosophy, who are expert in argument, regard him a fool. The Mayavadi followers of Vedanta consider him to be mistaken, and those who are steadfast on the path of karma, the fruitive workers, believe he is ruined. Those who are always committing offenses to the devotees say he is proud and duplicitous. The erroneous beliefs of these people originate from their mood of aversion to Bhagwan and their complete ignorance of the truths of devotional service to him, or Bhagavad Bhakti Tattva. They are unaware of the glories of Bhakti to Bhagwan and the characteristics of Bhakti, and they are unacquainted with the different stages of Bhakti to Bhagwan. They are accomplished only in worldly behavior and etiquette. Sometimes they attempt to measure by their limited intelligence truths that are beyond the scope of their limited sense perception, mind and intelligence. Certainly, Mayavadis are offenders to the Supreme Lord. What do they know of the wonderful varieties of bliss relished by a devotee? They are themselves mistaken and confused, and they therefore look upon the devotees of Bhagwan as similarly mistaken and confused. In fact, the whole world seems to be in illusion to them. Only a jeweler can recognize a diamond, not a potter or one who deals in cooking oil. Similarly, only the devotees of Bhagwan who know Bhakti Tattva or the truths of devotion to Bhagwan can recognize one endowed with asakti. They can appreciate that this greatly fortunate person has attained the most essential thing, devotion to the Supreme Lord, and that now his life has become successful. Besides the devotees of Bhagwan, no one else can recognize the supremely fortunate soul in whom asakti has arisen. Indifferent to honor and dishonor, such a person remains immersed in the current of the Mandakini river of attachment to the Supreme Lord or Bhagavad Asakti. Manifesting various types of behavior, he gradually advances towards the great ocean of Prema. Thus ends the Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti on the sixth shower of nectar named Manoharini or enchantment of the heart.